Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmar Bhaktivedānta Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev ki jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmar Bhaktivedānta Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmar Bhaktivedānta Swāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmar Bhaktisiddhānta jagad-guru Bhaktisiddhānta sorry. Paramahamsa Kula Swami Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupada ki jai. Tadya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai. Vyaspuja Titi Mahamahotsav ki jai. Swaparshad Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gokṣaras Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Śrīla Satya Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Naam Acharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Kora Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hari Bol, everybody. Sorry, my mind's like a little bit like all over the place right now. I'm not very shanti because we were supposed to be posting the next part of the Gurudev documentary this morning, and just before I was about to post it, I watched it, and there was a big thing that we needed to change. And so that was a bit of a freak out at the last minute. And so, yeah, that's why I'm starting at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of 7:30. And just why my mind's a little bit restless at the moment. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Madhavi Didi, Raseshwari Mataji, Rupa Manjari Didi, and Gargaraj Ji, Hare Krishna. Alright, so I didn't really plan so much to read, like I didn't but I think we could just read this for now from Sri Prabandhāvalī, and if I get time to read again later today, then we can read, because there's so much to read. So much to read. Actually, we could just read it in here online, right? Okay, so actually, no, let's read it on the PDF. Sorry, let me just find it again. So this is from a class that my Gurudev gave on Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupada's disappearance day, not his appearance day, but it's still his glories. So, and then, yeah, all right. So, chapter 4 from Sri Prabandhāvalī. Today is the anniversary of the day of separation from Nitya Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupada. It is the day of Panchami, and he also appeared on Panchami. He took birth in the home of Bhaktivedānta Thakur, who was an eternal associate of both Sri Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just as the sage Bhagirath brought the Ganga to this world, Bhaktivedānta Thakur was the great personality who brought the current of bhakti to this world in the modern era. When the so-called Gosvāmīs were making a business out of bhakti while engaging in varieties of worldly enjoyment, when, in the name of Mahaprabhu, so many kinds of bogus philosophies were prevalent, such as Sakipeki, Smarta Jati, Sahajya, etc. At that time, Srila Bhaktivedānta Thakur came. After that, Prabhupada appeared in the form of his son, Bimala Prasad. If these two great personalities had not appeared, then Shuddha Bhakti would not exist in the world today. And from the time they disappeared, society began reverting back to its previous condition. At first, there were 13 known Sahajya cults. Then our Guru Mahārāja, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī, counted 39. And how many there are now? No one knows. I am also seeing how things are gradually changing. We saw how renounced the devotees were before. For instance, we never used to see socks on the feet of any Vaishnava, and we never saw devotees wearing such sweaters and chadars as we do now. They only wore the bare necessities of clothing and a cheap blanket, even as they attended Mangalarti in the morning cold. It's only after the disappearance of Prabhupada that devotees can be seen to wear these other things. They would live with such simplicity, eating only shak, rice, and a thin dal. But in comparison to them, just look at the way that we are living. And I speak for myself also. Their knowledge, their renunciation, and their spiritual conception were of such a high standard that in comparison to them, we are so inferior. The period between Vishwanath Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur was an age of darkness for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Living at that time were some real Vaishnavas who performed real bhajan. But mostly, just as we see sometimes today, the so-called Vaishnavas only performed rituals for wages. When someone would die, people would call the Gaudiya Vaishnava Babajis, who would come and chant some ceremonial kirtan and perform other rituals for wages. And there was so much misconduct in their behavior. Seeing this, Bhaktivedānta Thakur thought, these people are Vaishnavas? The conception of Mahaprabhu has completely vanished. What can be done? He was very worried. Bhaktivedānta Thakur endeavored to his utmost, but changes did not come about in his lifetime to the degree that he would have liked. He went from town to town and village to village, inaugurating the Nam Hatta. In each village, he would assemble 4 or 5 of the religious men, form a committee, and hold programs for Harinam Kirtan on Sundays. Gradually, it spread from one village to the next, but overall, his preaching was limited to Navadip, Kolkata, and the rest of Bengal. He published the magazine Sajantoshani, and through its medium, he gradually published Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and other books in installments. He made a circle of devotees and also revealed Navadip Dham through his writings, although the scholars of society and the Sahajyas did not accept his ideology. Then Prabhupada appeared in Puri. Because Bhaktivedānta Thakur was a district magistrate, he would be transferred here and there, but he would always keep Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita with him and explain them to his son. Prabhupada received so much instruction from him, but we should understand that Prabhupada is an eternally liberated soul. There is no one in the world like him. Without being educated in school or college, he learned all subjects very quickly and became a great scholar in Sanskrit. His English was so high that even professors of English could not understand it. I have been told by some learned Western devotees that when reading his Brahma Samhita, they must repeatedly consult the dictionary. And his Bengali was also of such a high standard that even eminent scholars found it difficult to follow. He said that spiritual language should be like that. It shouldn't be so simple to understand. As one progresses spiritually by remaining in the company of Vaishnavas, he will be able to understand spiritual vernacular. At the age of 7 or 8, Prabhupada began worshipping a deity of Kurmadev, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave him the Maha Mantra and other mantras for his puja. At the age of 18, all of the scholars of astronomy in Bengal gave him the title Sarasvatī. After that, he attended college but quarreled with the professors, saying, "Will I learn from you or teach you?" When he abandoned his studies, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and other family members became concerned. So they took him to Puri, where he began to studying at the Satasan Ashram, which is where Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Gosvāmī had lived. Vaishnavas used to regularly meet there, and now Śrīla Siddhanti Mahārāja has a mat at that very place. There, Prabhupada began giving readings from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Present there were some Babajis who considered themselves a Sikh, and when they heard Prabhupada's explanations, they became inimical to him. Seeing this, Bhaktivinoda Thakur took him away from there and had him begin teaching the son of the king of Tripura. Prabhupada had a great library of Vaishnava literature, and having read through it thoroughly, he began teaching the son of the king in such a way. He began teaching the son of the king in such a way that the boy accepted a chanting mala and began wearing tilak. He became detached from the world, and gradually hearing Harikatha became his sole interest. Seeing this, the queen became very annoyed and said to the king, "This boy will become useless. Then, after your demise, what will happen? Who will make offerings to our departed souls? He will become a renunciate, and everything will be ruined. Quickly get rid of this teacher. Give him 400 rupees to go. We don't need money. We need a son." That was approximately 100 years ago, so you can imagine how much 400 rupees was worth then. The queen put so much pressure on her husband that in the end he approached Prabhupada and very humbly said, "It is a matter of great unhappiness that our family members are not in favor of you. They are afraid that the boy will take up bhakti and become a renunciate. I consider that it has been our great good fortune to have met a person like you and had our son educated by you, but the others do not understand." The king approached Bhaktivinoda Thakur, offered the money to him, but without accepting it, they left there. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur started a homeopathic shop. When the shop was unsuccessful, he thought, "I was not made to run a shop anyway," and he went and purchased some land in Mayapur. After locating the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, he installed deities there of Gaura, Vishnupriya, and Lakshmipriya, as well as small Radhakrishna murtis. After Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance, Prabhupada was determined to follow the Navadip Dham Parikrama that his father had written, and to attract people he invited great kirtan performers to attend. He set up a large tent. Thousands came for the Parikrama, and there the Katha of Shuddha Bhagavad Bhakti commenced. Gradually, qualified youths of only 16, 17, and 18 years, whose hearts were soft and pure, came forward, and Prabhupada made them into brahmacharis and sannyasis. With great ease, he was able to train them, but those who were over 50 years old, like parrots, could not be taught anything new. Then devotees like our Guru Mahārāja, Ban Mahārāja, Bhakti Pradeep Tirtha Mahārāja, Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Mahārāja, Aranya Mahārāja, and Narahari Prabhu came. In the beginning, there in Mayapur, Narahari Prabhu would offer arati while Prabhupada played the handheld gong, and gradually the preaching started. The convention of Jadandi Sannyas was established, and the result is that today, in the name and conception of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are being vigorously preached. Within 11 years, from 1926 to 1937, preaching was spread everywhere. But before that, so much time was spent in merely setting the foundation. Prabhupada published many magazines, a daily magazine, a weekly, a monthly, in the Sanskrit, Bengali, Hindi, Orisan, English, and Assami languages. And very easily, we have all inherited the fruit of his endeavor. Orisan is not a word, I don't think. Yeah, it's not a word. Okay. He established the Gaudiya line very strictly with great endeavor, and there were so many difficulties in his preaching campaign that we cannot even imagine them. There was so much opposition to Prabhupada's preaching at that time that his disciples were not even allowed to enter in Vrindavan or Navadvip. Prabhupada began culturing the creeper of devotion by cutting off all of the unnecessary branches and sub-branches. How? First of all, he revised the Guru Parampara. He said that we are of Mahaprabhu's line, and he removed the names of those who were not fully perfected. After establishing the names of Brahma, Narad, and Vyas, he went straight to Madhva. Prabhupada accepted the names of those from whom the people of this world would get the most benefit, and mostly they were brahmacharis. For the most part, he did not accept the names of those who had been grahastas for a long time. For the most part. Because Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was a grahasta for a long time, wasn't he? I don't know. After Madhva, he recognized some special personalities, and then he went to the name of Madhavendra Puri. Everyone accepts him, and then from him there is Ishwar Puri, Sarup Damodar, 6 Goswamis, then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. At this point, some had divided into the lines of Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, Vikeshwar Pandit, Lokanath Goswami, and others. I thought Gadadhar Pandit and Vikeshwar Pandit were in the same line, but maybe not. I don't know so much about this stuff. But Prabhupada said, we accept in our line those who are fully perfected souls, who know the correct Siddhanta, and who are Rasik, wherever they are. In this way, all of the various lines were represented in our parampara in one place or another. There are so many lines of disciplic succession, but Prabhupada said, we will recognize the Guru Parampara, not the disciplic succession. The Guru Parampara is composed solely of those who are Bhagavat Gurus, even if they made no disciples, and if there is therefore no direct disciplic line coming from them. Some of them may not have initiated any disciples at all, but still they are jagad-gurus. In this way, with all-pervading vision, he collected all the Mahājans and made what is known as the Bhagavat Parampara, or Guru Parampara. After the departure of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, so many familial disciplic lines arose, but Prabhupada ignored them and gave recognition to Baladev Vijayabhushan and then Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. He accepted only those whom he detected the real spiritual Siddhanta. Simply receiving the mantra in one's ear and wearing a dhoti or other cloth given by the Guru does not qualify one as the Guru's successor. Bhaktivedānta Thakur did not receive any mantra from Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, so how was he his disciple? He was a disciple of his conception, his feelings towards Krishna, his conception of ras, and his conception of tattva. This is a disciple. Most people cannot understand this, but being unable to see with such insight, Prabhupada declared this to be our line. Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj was also not an initiated disciple of Bhaktivedānta Thakur, but he embraced all of Bhaktivedānta Thakur's sentiments and conceptions, and due to this, his name appears next in the succession. At this point, all of the Babajis said, whose disciple is Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī? Who gave him sannyas? Why doesn't he wear the same cloth as Sanatana Goswami did? In our sampradaya, after Nityananda Prabhu and Sarup Damodar, everyone wore white cloth, but we see that he wears saffron cloth and is accepted at danda. How can he do this? But what relation does wearing either orange or white cloth have with bhakti? Is there any relation? Kiva viprat kiva nyasi shudra kene noy, jay Krishna tattva veta, shay guru hoy. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 8:128. Whether one is a Brahman, a sannyasi, or a Shudra, if he knows Krishna tattva, then he is a guru. So what to speak of being a Vaishnava? Prabhupada was thinking, We are not qualified to accept the dress that was worn by such great personalities as Rupa, Sanatan, Jiva, and Krishnadas Kaviraj. We will remain in the ordinary dress of sannyasis and will not accept the dress of Paramahansa Babajis. Remaining within the Varnashram system as brahmacharis and sannyasis, we will keep the ideal of that Paramahansa dress above our heads. Otherwise, if we accept that dress and commit sinful activities, it will be aparad at the feet of Rupa and Sanatan. Some Babajis criticized him for training brahmacharis and giving them the sacred thread, but our Guru Maharaj said that those Babajis were all fools, like animals. They wore Paramahansa dress and gave the elevated Gopi mantra to anyone and everyone who came. Yet Prabhupada was only training brahmacharis and giving them instructions on how to control the senses. So which is correct? Prabhupada wanted us to understand what is Siddhanta, that is Jiva Tattva, Maya Tattva, and Bhagavat Tattva, and how to avoid Maya in the forms of kanak, wealth, kamini, women, and pratishta, prestige. These are all the beginning instructions. Gopi Bhav is very elevated. First, we must understand that I am Krishna Das and begin taking Harinam. But these Babajis immediately gave the conception of Gopi Bhav to whoever approaches them. Then they all chant, I am a Gopi, I am a Gopi. And in this way, they create a disturbance in society. Every morning in our mat, we sing a song in which Prabhupada established the Bhagavat Parampara. Krishna hoite chaturmukha, hoye Krishna sevamukha. In his composing of the song, he accepted all of the great perfected personalities from different lines and declared, this is the line of Gaura. If Prabhupada had not come, then today would the name of Mahaprabhu and talks from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam be found anywhere? Here in Mathura, in Vraj, and everywhere else, Gaur Kirtan and Hari Katha are still going on and have not vanished. Therefore, the world will forever remain indebted to Prabhupada for his preaching. He never approached wealthy people. He would take 1 paisa from each person he met. And our Guru Maharaj did the same. Although he was from a wealthy family, he would take a wooden box with a slot in it in the market, and also onto the trains, trams, and buses. He would speak with people from all classes, and in this way the preaching spread in all directions. We should also engage in such a pure form of preaching, and not just remain idle after hearing this. As if an injection, you should all encourage others to start taking Harinam and hearing this conception, whether you are a man or a lady, married or unmarried. And don't think that just because one is not educated, he cannot do it. Did Haridas Thakur have any college degree? Did Raghunath Das Gosvāmī and others? But their activities were first class, perceptions were extremely high. We are regularly hearing tattva from scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Brihad Bhagavatamrita. But how will others have opportunity to hear it? After hearing it, we should take it to many other people, and this is the duty of each and every one of us. With great love, we should take Harinam and encourage others to chant it. We should hear Siddhanta ourselves and then help others to understand it. That will give Prabhupada great pleasure. To the very end of his life, Prabhupada said, we are mere laborers. We are peons of Bhagavat Katha. He never made himself a permanent living situation in an opulent temple, but always kept moving. These days we do things a little differently, but we should always try to follow not only Prabhupada's philosophical conception, but the ideal he showed through his own behavior as well. These ideas serve as the very foundation of bhakti, and if this foundation is not established, then we fall from hearing the higher levels of katha. For instance, Bhaktivedānta Thakur has written a song entitled Vibhavari Shesha, which includes lines such as Yamuna Jivana Giriparayana Manasa Chandra Chakora Nama Sudarasa Gaura Krishna Yasha Rakovachana Manamora. Shri Krishna is the life of the Yamuna. He is always engaged in amorous pastimes, and he is the moon of the gopis' hearts. Sing the glories of he whose name is pure ras. O mind, always remember these words. In our mat, we sing this every day, and there is certainly some benefit in it. But do we understand the complete bhav contained within it? Nothing remains outside these lines. Not Śrīla, not the Brahmar Gīt, not the Venu Gīt. Nothing. Everything is there. And all of the previous lines of this song are similarly saturated with both ras and tattva. What is the meaning? The complete calm Gayatri has come here. Shara means an arrow of calm, desire, which Krishna places on his bow. How many of these arrows does Krishna have? 5. His sidelong glances, and his eyebrows, cheeks, nose, and smile. So tell me, is there anything remaining outside these lines? Helping the people of the world to understand these topics is the real task of the Guru Parampara, those who are conversant with Ras, the Diksha and Shiksha Gurus. If we examine one line of the song after another, then for so many days, so lectures could be given, and our hearts would become full of ras and divine bliss upon hearing their full meaning. So much bhav has been put into each word by Bhaktivedānta Thakur, and it is the same with the compositions of Narottam Thakur and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. To understand what our acharyas have given, great intelligence and bhav are required. And if we have such a bhav in our hearts by which we can understand the poetry and the special characteristics of acharyas like Prabhupada, then wherever we may go, it will always remain with us. In explaining the line Parang Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam from the first verse of Mahaprabhu's Shikshashtak, Prabhupada wrote that this is the Gaudiya Mat's mode of worship. There are 3 stages: the beginning stage of sadhan, the intermediate stage of bhav, and the final attainment produced by that bhav, which is called prem. Sadhana is that practice by which Shuddha Sattva Bhav arises, and if it not arise, what one is practicing cannot be called sadhana. We can all examine ourselves and see if we are practicing that makes bhav arise or not. Are the symptoms there or not? We may not even have the proper aim in our sadhana. If someone is striking a match, what is his aim? To obtain a flame. And if after striking one match a flame is not obtained, then he will take another match and try again. Our endeavor to reach the sadhya, the final attainment, the practice of sadhana is like that. Shuddha anuvritti, spiritual hunger, tushti, satisfaction, and pushti, strength. These 3 things should appear, and if they don't, then we are not really practicing sadhana and cannot be called real sadhaks. Whatever we do should be done with this vision. By performing this activity, bhav for Krishna will arise. Is the match producing a flame or not? If we see that our producing attachment for material results such as pratishta, then we are moving in the wrong direction. Therefore, we should understand this point well. The sole aim of kirtan is to make bhav arise. Cheto darpana marjanam. In our practice of Nam Sankirtan, have our minds become purified or not? Are our minds going towards wealth, enjoyment, and prestige? Do we consider material enjoyments to be poisonous or favorable to us? Material enjoyment is poison. Haridas Thakur was taking Harinam in a solitary place when a very beautiful woman approached him and said, "Prabhu, you will no longer have to cook for yourself. You won't have to fetch water, and I will serve your tulsi plant. You can just chant Harinam all day, and I will perform all of your tasks. And if you become fatigued, I will massage your feet." But did Haridas Thakur accept her? All types of enjoyment should be understood to be poison, whether one is a man or a woman. If we consider things like luxurious food and accommodation to be favorable to us, then the mirror of the mind will not be cleansed, and the reflection of one's own spiritual form will not be visible. The mirror should be made pure. There should be no dust or anything on it. We should be able to see what is our illusory body, what is our spiritual body, and what all of our faults are. But it is our great misfortune that instead, we only see others' faults. The first type of contamination affecting our minds is thinking that we are the material body. We are eternal servants of Krishna, but the most prevalent dust in the mirror of the mind is thinking that we are the material body. Endeavoring for the happiness of the body is dust on the mirror, or contamination on our minds. There are so many anarthas. Sarup Brahm, bewilderment concerning one's actual form and nature. Asat Trishna, desire for temporary things. Hriday Dorbalya, weakness of heart. And Aparad, offenses. Besides these, described in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Madhurya Kadambini, are Utsaha, mind, false confidence, Ghana Tarala, sporadic endeavor, Vyuda Vikalpa, indecision, Vishaya Sangara, combative, Niyamakshama, inability to uphold vows, and Paranga Rangini, delighting in the material facilities produced by devotion. Then there are 4 types of aparad. Dushkritota, arising from previous sins. Sukritota, arising from previous piety. Aparadota, arising from offenses and chanting. And Bhaktyuta, arising from imperfect service. When all of these are eradicated, then our real selves, the Atma, will reflect in the mirror of the mind. But for now, our vision is distorted. It should be the mirror of the heart. Anyways, whatever. So, the word, but for now, our vision is distorted. We consider the pain and happiness of the material body to be our own, and our worldly relations and worldly loss and gain to be related to our very selves. Bhava Mahādavagni Nirvapana. This is the forest fire of material existence in which we are time and again taking birth. See, I think why it was translated mind is because the word mana often is translated as mind, but it's also often translated as heart. When the mirror of the heart is purified, then this great fire will be extinguished, and we will progress along the path of sadhana for uttama bhakti, that devotion which is free from any tendencies towards karma or jnana. That devotion will be kleshagni, which burns away so many types of difficulties. It will not happen all at once, but gradually. First there is shraddha, then nishta, and then we will come towards ruchi and asakti. When our anarthas will have been mostly eradicated. However, those anarthas may still exist in root form. One may shave his head, one may shave his head, but has even one hair completely disappeared? Its roots are still there, and hair will again appear after a couple of days. In the same way, when we have reached the stage of asakti, all anarthas will remain. Externally, they will not be visible. If a favorable environment is given to them, that is, if we keep bad company, or offend a Vaishnava, then they will reappear. But upon reaching the stage of bhav, they will be finished forever. Then there is shubhada, which is of many varieties. In the worldly sense, shubha means having good wealth, good progeny, position, fame, and knowledge, and keeping the body healthy so that the effects of old age will not come prematurely. But what is real shubha? Having ruchi for the name and lila katha of Bhagavan and for the limbs of Bhagavad Bhajan Sadhan. Having eagerness for these things is shubha, and that shubha is the lotus flower described by the words Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. If the rays of the moon fall upon it, it will bloom purely and without blemishes. How will such pure bhakti arise in the heart? The Shakti of Harinam is like the rays of the moon, which make the lotus of the heart gradually bloom, taking it to the stages of Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, and Bhav. When it fully blossoms, that is the stage of Prem. But for the Shakti of Harinam to act in this way, our interests must be drawn away from material life. In the same way as 2 swords cannot remain together in one scabbard, Maya and Bhakti cannot remain together in one's heart. Vidya Vanam. Nam Sankirtan is the very life of Vidya Vadhu. Vidya is that by which we can know Jiva Tattva, Maya Tattva, and ultimately Krishna. It does not mean knowledge of mundane science or how to make money. Real Vidya is bhakti and ultimately assumes the form of Vadhu, or a consort of Krishna. First there is sadhan bhakti, then bhav bhakti, and finally prem bhakti. After entering prem bhakti, one's devotion develops through the stages of sneha, man, pranay, rag, anurag, bhav, and finally mahabhav. The embodiment of mahabhav is Srimati Radhika, who is the Vadhu, or consort of Krishna. Over and above the Sandhini Shakti, the Samvit and Hladini Shaktis fully manifest as Radha Bhav. This is Vidya Vadhu. And even if one ray of this transcendental potency enters our hearts, it is called Bhav. Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam. If we are chanting Harinam with this Bhav, then with every step we experience increasing Ananda, divine joy. In the Mahamantra, there is Krishna Nam, and also Hare, which means she who attracts Krishna away to the Kunja, Srimati Radhika. This bhav is so deep that it will end, and this is the Nam, so saturated with ras that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought to this world. When we chant the Mahamantra with this bhav, then every step will submerge us deeper into the ocean of divine bliss. Purnamrita Asvadanam. What is Purnamrita, the complete nectar? Prem, and one will perpetually relish it. Absorbed in chanting the name in this way, our acharyas such as Jayadev Gosvāmī, Sanatana Gosvāmī, and Bhaktivedānta Thakur could envision divine pastimes and compose such nectarian literatures. And Sarvatma Snapanam. One will never desire to resurface from that ocean of nectar where there is not even a trace of Maya, meaning that they have entered into Sarup Siddhi. This is the explanation of the first verse of Mahaprabhu's Shikshashtak given by Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupāda, whose return to Sri Radhakrishna's eternal pastimes we are commemorating on this day. Alright, so they're just starting the program in the temple now, which I don't want to miss. So I'm just going to end it here. I'll do a quick Jayadvani. Jai Shishi. Rup Manjari Didi, I posted a link in the description. Jai Shishi, Jai Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Vihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatarashatashmar Bhaktivedānta Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad, Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Bhaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad, Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Swāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad, Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai, Swaparshad Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatarashatashmar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai, jagad-guru Śrīla Prabhupada Vyas Puja Maha Mahotsav Ki Jai. Shri Nitila Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Gokshara Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhaktivedānta Thakur Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannatha Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai, Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopala Padadash Raghunath, Shri Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari, Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Braja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradakta Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Radha Kund Shama Kuni Munoganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaura Primanande Hari Hari Go, Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavascha, Krishna Bhakti Pada Devi Satyavadai Namo Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranam, everybody. So I do have a lot to do today, but if I get time, I will read more about jagad-guru Srila Sarasvatī Prabhupada, maybe some articles by him, and some articles from his from all of his followers. And then in the evening time, I was thinking of reading, last year Vaijayanti Mala, she wrote a very detailed, beautiful account of Srila Govinda Gosvāmī Mahārāja's disappearance, which she had never, like she explained it a little bit, but she never went into full detail about the whole pastime, what happened when he entered Nitya-lila. And she was directly she got to witness that pastime. Her and one other lady, what's her name? Oh my God, I can't. I think, yeah. Her and Chandrika, they went and asked him a question, and while he was giving the answer, he said, "Please." He gave the most beautiful answer, and then he said, "Please excuse me." And then he entered Nitya-lila, like right after he spoke that Harikatha. And anyways, but she writes it in full detail, the whole account. It's amazing. So I was thinking of reading that tonight. All right, so I'll see you later. Jai Shri Radhe. I'm gonna run to the temple now for the program. Haribol.